Does the keto diet specifically work, or a carnivorous diet? And is that the best of all possible intersessional diets?
Nobody in the medical field is going to believe that a diet could change something as devastating as schizophrenia.
This kind of hypothesizing has gone beyond the merely anecdotal.
So anybody who wants to say, well, this is just anecdotal, no, it's way beyond anecdotal evidence now at this point.
The diet that my daughter has been promoting, the lion diet.
Beef, lamb, bison, salt and water.
Use of such diets can not only reduce the effect of potential toxins on mitochondrial function, but also increase mitochondrial metabolism and also help the body heal.
A carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet, and nutritional ketosis is very therapeutic. Now, our mitochondria love ketones because they're a superfuel, but they also help to reduce free radicals such as reactive oxygen species that will inflict damage on the mitochondria.
This kind of hypothesizing has gone beyond the merely anecdotal to the point where there is a tremendous amount of research supporting the proposition that dietary factors play a major role in the genesis of such severe mental disorders, and not only mental disorders, also physical disorders like obesity, heart disease, cancer, diabetes.
He's simply talking about how we can fall out of metabolic homeostasis due to poor diet choices.
We have more than enough science for me to be able to say it is very clear and understandable why your daughter experienced such tremendous health benefits by doing the diet that she did. It is not quackery. People accuse, I actually
no wonder,
know your daughter,
no
and
I mean, because it's so preposterous.
It seems preposterous because we've been conditioned to believe in the importance of plant consumption.
It took us a long time to swallow the fact that she couldn't eat anything. And my wife and I basically have the same diet. I mean, it's a very radical solution, and everyone should be skeptical of radical solutions.
It just looks that way because our supermarkets are filled with everything all of the time. And everything all of the time is not the proper human diet.
But the reason that we concluded that it was worthwhile, let's say, to publicize the carnivorous diet is because if you just eat beef, that's all you're eating. It's one thing, and you can do that for a long time.
Humans have eaten ruminant meat since our genesis.
As we know from the Inuit, for example, and the Mazah, you can live virtually forever on a carnivorous diet. Now, the advantage to that seems to me to give you the optimal chance to experiment. Because when we played with like the FODMAP diet.
FODMAP, yeah.
FODMAP diet, right? Well, it made no sense logically, and there were still things within it that looked very contradictory.
Agreed. The FODMAPs are full of contradictions.
I agree that a carnivorous diet may in fact be the gold standard elimination diet to see if a change in dietary pattern can produce the health benefits that a person is seeking.
So you could try a carnivorous diet. If it worked, you'd know that diet is a reason. And then knowing that it worked and being in a condition where now you've recovered to some degree, you could conceivably add foods back one by one and see if you could regenerate the symptoms.
Usually when people start adding plants back into the diet, their symptoms start coming back.
The reason I'm hesitant to recommend it for everybody is because I already know the nutrition experts will vilify me along with you and Michaela and others.
Yeah.
And so I want to throw them a bone.
Are those the same experts that recommended the food pyramid?
The pyramid doesn't work. We've already tried it.
It's upside down.
What?
Well, people have been incentivized to withhold truth because of the whole cancel culture that we've got going on.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
Don't even get me
sure.
started on that, because that food pyramid really messed up my own personal health. So for the people who say, well, no, there's no way I'm only going to eat meat, then I want to at least meet them where they're at and say, fine, you don't have to only eat meat. There are lots of options. You know, the carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet, but there are other variations of ketogenic diets.
There's a lot of poor quality ketogenic diets out there. A lot of it having to do with all these trendy keto products that people push. But really, we should just be basing it around real food, and red meat is king, Base it on fatty red meat, potentially add eggs, fish, dairy if you can tolerate.
Water-only fast would be the most drastic intervention, but again, you can't fast for too long because you're going to starve to death, and I wouldn't want to do that in an underweight person. And the second best version is exactly what you've described, the Lion's diet, which is just meat, beef alone. It's enough nutrition to sustain a human. There will be people already, I can hear people already saying fiber.
Yeah.
Fiber is really good, Dr. Palmer. How dare you get rid of fiber?
The benefits of fiber are not exclusive to fiber, which is why it's non-essential. So we can garner the exact same benefits and actually more thoroughly through being in nutritional ketosis.
If somebody's really in trouble with serious symptoms, or if somebody just wants to do maybe a 1 month or 3 month experiment to see, will this improve my symptoms? I would actually encourage people to give it 3 months.
Right. That's about what we've concluded too. It's about 3 months.
Do a carnivore diet, therapeutic ketogenic diet. I can solidly stand behind the ketogenic diet because we have an enormous evidence base, cell biology models to human clinical trials of ketogenic diets for seizures, weight loss, type 2 diabetes, for type 1 diabetes, kidney disease, for cancer, and other conditions.
Nutritional ketosis allows our body to maintain metabolic homeostasis.
And we have good evidence that a ketogenic diet can, in fact, be safe, can be highly effective for many of those conditions. But I don't disagree with you in terms of what you're saying about the carnivore diet and some of the benefits.
Well, also I should say too, like as a behavioral psychologist, I mean, there's no sense suggesting something to someone they won't do.
Exactly.
And so if you can generate a plethora of alternatives, some of which aren't quite so extreme and they might work, more power to you.
If you're going to have any plant matter in your diet, make sure that it's always local, seasonal, and ripe. Otherwise, it really has no business entering our body.
I had this patient with schizoaffective disorder. He had been my patient for 8 years. Schizoaffective disorder is a cross between schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. This man was tormented and disabled by his illness. He had chronic hallucinations, delusions. He was convinced that everybody in the world was out to get him. People were laughing at him, spying on him, trying to hurt him. He had tried 17 different medications. None of them helped his symptoms. He had gained a massive amount of weight and asked for my help to lose weight. And I put him on a ketogenic diet. And the shocking thing that led me ultimately on this path was that about 2 months in, he starts spontaneously reporting that his hallucinations and delusions are starting to go away. That man went on to lose over 160 pounds, has kept it off to this day, 7 years later. He was able to do things he hadn't been able to do since the time of his diagnosis.
And there are thousands of anecdotes just like this.
He was able to go out in public and not be paranoid. He was able to perform improv in front of a live audience.
Wow.
He teaches karate. Initially, I was just in disbelief. Schizoaffective disorder doesn't get better. What on earth is the ketogenic diet doing? It's actually a 100-year-old evidence-based treatment for epilepsy. And it can stop seizures even when medications fail to stop seizures.
All medications ignore root cause and merely manage our symptoms.
There's an entire body of literature in the neurology field on how the ketogenic diet stops seizures, including changes in neurotransmitters, changes in the gut microbiome, decreasing inflammation. But one thing stuck out at me. It improves mitochondrial function, which basically means it improves brain metabolism.
Carbohydrates, glucose, damage our mitochondria where ketones fuel and protect them.
We, for decades, have been accumulating this evidence, and nobody to date has really put it all together and have it fit and have it make sense. Once you understand that science, it leads to solutions that may actually help people heal and recover from disorders that we are currently telling people are lifelong, incurable disorders.
It's not that ketogenic diets are magical, it's just that we've been told to gravitate towards carbohydrates as our main focus. Now, it's these strange chronic diseases that are odd and extreme, not carnivore.
Mitochondria play a role in the switching on and off of genes like they do in the switching on and off of inflammation and the production of hormones and neurotransmitters. So that's another reason why delving into the cell down to the level of the mitochondria is a good place to be looking for the common pathway that we're searching for with regards to the generation or the initiation of mental illness.
At least 90% of the food that we consume ends up inside mitochondria. So mitochondria are the processors of food. They convert it into ATP, which is the power unit of the cell. Our bodies are in fact composed of food that we ate. Mitochondria help create, regulate, and release neurotransmitters, including serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, GABA. And in fact, those neurotransmitters then impact mitochondrial function. So it's a two-way street.
You cannot be healthy with mitochondrial dysfunction.
My family has been experimenting a lot with a radical keto diet, and that's an all beef diet with salt. One of the most reliable treatments for arthritis, and this works with virtually everyone, is if you fast, your arthritis goes away. Now, the problem is it comes back when you eat anything. So then you might say, well, if you were going to investigate a potential dietary link with pathology, you'd want to find the simplest possible diet that could actually sustain you over some reasonable period of time.
Fatty red meat alone contains all the essential nutrients.
It eradicates a tremendous number of variables.
A ketogenic diet is actually tricking the body into thinking that it is fasting when it isn't fasting.
Oh, that's very interesting. And so you also get the advantages of autophagy,
Absolutely.
self-devouring.
Boom. This kid gets brighter every time I see him.
To trick the body into thinking that it's fasting.
I wouldn't say trick. I would just say that we're not over-consuming carbohydrates, which we shouldn't. And that way we are allowing our body to make its own glucose, just the right amount. And we're not having then insulin issues where we're over-secreting insulin all the time.
Get those benefits of fasting, but not have the people starve to death. And like you said, is there a way to actually provide adequate nutrition and thrive? And so it was the ketogenic diet. And what that's really doing is it's actually changing metabolism in the entire body, dramatically reducing inflammation, highly upregulating autophagy, something called mitophagy, which is mitochondrial repair. It's getting rid of old and defective cells. It's getting rid of old parts. And then when you eat, replacing them with new ones.
Typical carbohydrate consumption these days will just get in the way of this even being possible.
And that can actually have profound healing potential independent of whatever you were eating. Healthy diet or an unhealthy diet or anything in between.
Okay. We need periods of eating and not eating. And the not eating periods are the repair periods. And so in a culture like ours, where you can eat any damn thing you want all the time, and everyone does, what that implies is that not only are we making ourselves obese and increasing our proclivity to diabetes at a rate that's absolutely staggering, but we're also perhaps never allowing ourselves to enter into the biological condition that's associated, as you said, with the repair processes that go all the way down into the cellular.
People are eating way too many carbohydrates way too frequently.
Every culture on earth, just about, has used fasting as a healing intervention for millennia.
Are there benefits to ceasing food intake altogether that can't be accrued from merely eating, let's say, a carnivorous or a keto diet?
There are. Fasting is, in fact, different than maybe the carnivore diet. So sometimes you can do a fast, get some healing or repair or just a reboot, if you will, to stimulate autophagy, reduce risk for cancer based on this science.
I personally like doing a dry fast for 24 hours here and there. It's just easy and convenient.
Your daughter is a perfect example of somebody who might be sensitive, and she may do best with an all-meat diet and a very simple diet. Your daughter has put out amazing information for people, very practical step-by-step instructions for people who want to try her dietary pattern to see if it might help them.
Well, it certainly changed my life. I wouldn't eat plants again unless I was forced to.
It is very clear and understandable why your daughter experienced such tremendous health benefits by doing the diet that she did. Anybody who says, well, that's just an anecdote, I would want you to push back and say, no, actually, there are clinical trials underway that is progressing through the oncology field already. That ketogenic and other dietary interventions can slow the progression, can actually shrink tumors. For me, as a professional, it started with that anecdote. It is no longer in the realm of anecdote anymore. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of patients patients with bipolar disorder, with schizophrenia, with chronic unrelenting depression, with OCD, with anorexia nervosa, who are coming out of the woodwork, sharing their stories of recovery and remission.
For the people that have given it a really good go and had amazing results, like their outcomes are phenomenal, we don't really need any studies to come out. Like, we know, we've lived it.
Some of these people are able to get off all of their psychiatric meds and remain in remission. So anybody who wants to say, well, this is just anecdotal evidence, no, it's way beyond anecdotal evidence now at this point.
My sense is that with the really severe mental disorders, intractable depression, as mental health professionals, as physicians, our primary assumption at the moment should be that these are metabolic related or other physiological disorders until there is compelling proof otherwise.
100%.
I do hope you found this interesting. I do appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.